Welcome to the series of Blender tutorials. This tutorial is about the 3D cursor in Blender 2.59. This script has been contributed by Chirag Raman and edited by Monisha Banerjee. After watching this tutorial, we shall learn what is 3D cursor, how to add new objects to the 3D view in Blender using the 3D cursor, and the snapping options for 3D cursor in Blender. I assume that you already know how to install Blender on your system. If not, please refer to our earlier tutorials on installing Blender. The 3D cursor is the red and white ring with the crosshair that you see at the center of the Blender screen. Let us see the 3D cursor in Blender. To do that, we need to open Blender. There are two ways to open Blender. First, go to the Blender icon on the desktop. Right-click the Blender icon. Left-click Open. The second and easier way to open Blender is left double-click the Blender icon on the desktop. This is Blender 2.59. Please note that the screen resolution shown here is 1024 by 768 pixels. The font size in the Blender interface has been increased so that you can understand all the options given. To learn how to increase the interface font size, please see the tutorial on User Preferences. This is known as the welcome page or splash screen. It shows some useful reference links for learning about Blender. To remove the splash screen, press Escape on your keyboard, or left-click mouse anywhere on the Blender interface other than the splash screen. Now you can see the default Blender workspace. The 3D cursor is right at the center of the screen, surrounded by the cube. We can't see the cursor properly, so we must delete the cube. By default, the cube is already selected. To delete it, press the Delete button on the keyboard. Left-click Delete. There, you might be able to see the 3D cursor better now. The primary purpose of the 3D cursor is to specify the location of a new object added to the 3D scene. Go to Add, Mesh, left-click Cube. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift and A to add new objects to the 3D view. A new cube is added to the 3D view. As you can see, the new cube has appeared on the same location as the 3D cursor. Now, let us see how we can add a new object to a new location. First, we need to move the 3D cursor to a new location. To do this, left-click at any location in the 3D space. I am clicking to the left side of the cube. Shift and A to add a new object. Mesh. Left-click UV sphere. The UV sphere appears at the new location of the 3D cursor. Now, we shall see the snapping options for the 3D cursor. Go to Object. Go to Snap. This is the Snap menu. There are various options here. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift and S. Selection to Cursor snaps the selected item to the 3D cursor. For example, let us snap the cube to the 3D cursor. Right-click on the cube. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Left-click Selection to Cursor. The cube snaps to the 3D cursor. Now let's move the cube to the right. Left-click green handle. Hold and drag your mouse to the right. For keyboard shortcut, press G and Y. To learn more about moving objects in the 3D view, see the tutorial on Basic Description of Blender Interface. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Left-click cursor to selected. The 3D cursor snaps to the center of the cube in the new location. In case you have more than one object selected at the same time, say the cube and the UV sphere here, cursor to selected snaps the 3D cursor at the center of the two objects selected. Let me demonstrate. As you can see, the cube is already selected. Shift plus right-click to select the UV sphere. So now you have two objects selected at the same time. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Click cursor to selected. The 3D cursor snaps to the center of the two selected objects. Now, Shift plus right-click the lamp. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Click cursor to selected. The 3D cursor snaps to the center of the three selected objects. Click on any point in the 3D view to move the 3D cursor. I am clicking to the bottom right. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Click cursor to center. The 3D cursor snaps to the center of the 3D view. Press A on the keyboard to deselect the objects. Now, right-click the UV sphere. Press A to deselect it. Shift and S to pull up the snap menu. Click cursor to active. The 3D cursor snaps to the center of the UV sphere, the last active selection. The 3D cursor provides additional benefits when used as a pivot point while modeling, but we shall look at that in later tutorials. Now, try to add new objects to the 3D view in different locations using the 3D cursor. After that, explore the snapping options in the snap menu. All the best! So that wraps up our tutorial on Blender's 3D cursor. This tutorial is created by Project Oscar and supported by the National Mission on Education through ICT. More information on the same is available at the following links: oscar.iitb.ac.in and spoken-tutorial.org/nmeict-intro. The Spoken Tutorial Project conducts workshops using spoken tutorials, also gives certificates to those who pass an online test. For more details,
please write us to contact@spoken-tutorial.org.
Thanks for joining us. And this is Monisha from IIT Bombay signing off.